We are very fortunate today to be interviewing Adrian Or. He's the CEO of the New Zealand Super Fund. So, Adrian, tell me, why is cultural capital or cultural capability of any importance really to business?
I think it's critical to business, and mate, lovely to be here talking as well.
Thank you.
And it is critical because we live and do business with people, and people are what matters. If you want customers, if you want people to come and work with you, work for you, it's about people. And the world is getting smaller, and we have to deal more and more with diversity amongst people. I prefer to talk about it the other way around, inclusiveness, including everyone in decisions, including everyone in outcomes, and making sure everyone gets a fair go, a fair share.
So has that been easier for you because you're a little bit different? I mean, you're not the stock standard package, you're not your European New Zealander by descent. Tell me about your own journey.
Yeah, I think I never know if it's easy, it feels natural, put it that way. We've all got our own stories coming through, and if I tried to define my story, I think it would be called a mongrel. There's a little bit of everything in me. Mostly Cook Island, which I'm very proud of, and I always say mostly because that is the actual family I grew up with.
Right.
So called Cook Island, as you can tell, as well as some Irish, and then a whole lot of other bits, even a smidgen of Whakatoa. So we are both recent migrants and very long-term migrants in our family.
How does that change the way that you see the world, your leadership role at the Super Fund?
I think in ways I've been thinking hard in hindsight about what it might mean, and I think what it's allowed me to do is have more empathy, and that's not sympathy, but just more ability to think hard about, well, where are they coming from, what are they seeing, how are they viewing, they being just different people who might not have come from a certain school or through a certain education structure, or through some type of formal training.
More cultural awareness?
Yes, I'm sure that I've got many cultural blind spots, but it makes me try to stay really aware. And I'm just, seriously proud of that colourful background that I have. I feel blessed by it. I can go out to one of the outer islands of the Cook Islands, Archu, and I'm there on my homeland. I can go to the central North Island, and I'm there with several generations of family. I can even go back to Ireland, and there we are, all these people that look a bit more like me than they do in the Cooks. So it's an absolute blessing to be a mixture. The number one thing that I really feel that it's given me now is horizon, and shifting away from what am I doing for me right here, right now, and it's mostly about, am I going to leave something better than I arrived with, the kaitiaki concept.
Sure.
And for investment, that's how we run our shop.
So tell me about this centre or this group for inclusive capital that you're involved in.
Yeah, well, the inclusive capitalism, this is coalition for inclusive capitalism, and like all things, I think it's been bred out of necessity. And this is there's $35 trillion of capital sitting around this table.
Wow.
You've got investment managers, asset managers, corporates.
So what distinguishes it?
Regulators.
What's its unique selling proposition?
Its unique selling proposition is to say capitalism is a fantastic system, the best we've got, but it's far from perfect. And in many ways it rules out people from being included. It might rule out particular diversity, particular groups, whether it be religion, ethnicity, age, marriage status, sexual preference. There are all these conscious biases, and capitalism, while it creates wealth, can distribute it in very narrow ways, and it can cut people out. And so in a democracy, to legitimise capitalism, and it needs to be, you have to make sure it's inclusive. In other words, it accepts diversity, and part of that is about being long-term and horizon. Don't think about right here, right now. Think about now, think about the environment, think about wider society that you're working amongst, and think about all the governance and decision-making roles you're making that are ruling people out with sometimes just
So that's
unconscious
interesting,
bias.
because we're talking about equity considerations, but there is just the bottom line consideration that by being inclusive, long term, you net more in terms of gross profit.
One, it's just an absolute firm belief of myself personally that the more inclusive you're going to be through time, through environment, society, the more successful you will be. Some of that will be financial success if you can stay in the game long enough. And financial success, and I say belief, I choose that word well, because I don't think we should die by empirics. Can you prove or not? Is a long-term investor or a more diverse investor better? Because statistics will tell you whatever you torture it to find out. It's a belief. What we do in our investment at the super fund is we embed that belief into our behaviour, and we call it responsible investing. Environmental considerations, societal considerations, from good labour practices through diversity around boards and decision making. We embed these things into where we decide.
It's very interesting.
And governance.
Because I've been thinking about how we can develop a new definition of financial capital that has a component of social capital within it. Because I don't think long term you can have high financial capital without a requisite minimum amount of social capital. This is really the start of it, isn't it?
I totally agree. I mean, we talked about the coalition inclusive capitalism. Another group, little bits of overlap, slightly less societal, more just pure business, focusing capital on the long term. And this is a very large effort run by the Canadian Pension Plan initially. McKinsey are now involved, again, another 30 plus trillion US dollars of capital, talking about the horizon. And what do you mean by the horizon? It means that if you are valuing an asset, understand the intrinsic value, not just today's price. And the intrinsic value has to be, can you keep doing that business through time? And if so, have you captured all of those externalities? Some positive for society, we create jobs or opportunities, some negative, we might create pollution or slums or working underclass. Price the assets properly, in other words, put the right discount rate on the valuation of an asset, and that includes both the private capture and that externality.
How far off do you think we are from a time when people say, I need to develop my financial capability and my risk management capability and my good employer capability, and I've got to have cultural capability because that's critical to the bottom line and to being competitive?
I'd say for those people who are going to succeed, they have already started. And I would say New Zealand is behind on the game. I've stood up in front of very large audiences and had a whole lot of blank stares at me thinking, oh no, this is just another way of box ticking. Yet I've stood up in global audiences with absolute global leaders, from Prince Charles, Christine Lagarde running the IMF, true Paul Polson running Unilever, people who are saying, if you do not understand the community, the society, the environment you're working in, you do not have a sustainable business.
And why do you think we're behind here? Is it just because we're so far away from everywhere else, we think we can just speak English?
I think so. A combination of things. One is isolation, geographic, without doubt. Right. Another part has been relatively, until our generation, a pretty homogeneous population. Māori Pacific had saved us from being the Falklands of the South Pacific. We've had a living, pulsing culture, and we're being stirring at trying to work out. When I look forward 20, 30 years' time, I'm so excited. It's just going to be such an unbelievable cultural life here in this country. And I want it to also remain what it is today, which is the safest democracy in the world that we can grow up in and respect each other.
Do you think business understands how to leverage off cultural capability, ethnic superdiversity for business gain? Do you think they know how to do that, or they even see that as an opportunity?
Yeah. I wouldn't say they see it as an opportunity. I think they're increasingly realising it, generalising here as a necessity. Because if you want to employ, attract, retain, motivate the skills you need, then congratulations, our labour force is what it is. And increasingly you have to import technical skill. So we have to grow within, and I get very upset when I see some ethnic groups being left behind, my own one in particular, when I see the Pacific Island folk just not owning the capital and stepping up too often. And so we have to grow rapidly from within, but we're also going to have to attract globally. The main part where people are seeing it at the moment is that, suddenly we're Asian, and we should be able to sell something over there, over there. And so people are kind of leaping towards it. And we've seen, some bungee jumping behaviour, we've gone across and tried to do things. Now I get a good sense of a more concerted effort happening, but at early days, the government machinery is kind of up and chugging, large corporates thinking hard of the Fonterras of the world, but there's still that resistance underneath.
So tell me about the super fund and what you have done there to try and make it a culturally capable organisation.
Yeah, well, for us, I believe for any investment firm, but this doesn't happen to be all investment firms. For any investment firm, one of the first things you learn outside of how to construct a portfolio is about how to make good decisions. And good decisions come from avoiding all of the foibles of humans: short-termism, career risk, reputation risk, groupthink. When you're surrounded by people who go, "Oh yes, mate, you're very right. Yes, am I saying the right thing?" So we actually, rather than rush off and say we need a certain amount of male, female, gender or ethnicity, or we thought much harder around what is a culture, constructive, achievement facing, rather than competitive, aggressive or passive defensive. The yes, no. And that constructive achievement ends up naturally bringing in an amazing different set of behaviours and views around which different cultures, genders, religious, technical work experience, marital status, whatever it is, keep just bringing that strength in. So we consciously look for diversity in decision making in a constructive kind of fashion. Very, very deliberate. You have to be deliberate.
So ultimately, what will drive business to wanting to become culturally capable?
I think it's going to be a combination of things. The very first one, which will make it when it's winning, when people see it in their self-interest. And that's just human. And that's great. That means it becomes sustainable. The second part will be, sadly, I think, through necessary regulatory behaviours, where you're saying you cannot discriminate or persecute or whatever it is. I'm not sure how far that will get you on the way through. The other parts will be through leading by example, like what you're doing with yourself. You will see leaders come out very successful and be able to continue to tell the story of what they are doing.
Can I ask you, are you seeing more culturally capable leaders coming through than in the past? Because sometimes when you go to leadership meetings, they do just all look a box set.
Yes, that's right. I find it hard to answer that at the moment because I've been really blessed with the current role where I am dealing globally. I'm the chairman of the International Forum of Sovereign Wealth Funds, 31 countries from Africa through to the Far East. So I am
So you have your own United Nations.
So swamped. We're bringing them all here to New Zealand
Wonderful.
in November next year. I'm also I hear a lot of Pākehā New Zealanders being far more culturally aware. I hear Māori Pacific Island language being used just regularly, and far less of the cultural cringe of only 20 years ago,
Yes.
and that's fantastic. So, I think we are changing dramatically, and I see ourselves separating from being US or Australia or old Britain. We really are pushing ourselves in places. We've got a long way to go.
So final question, what are the key characteristics of a successful culturally capable leader?
I would say someone who is prepared to accept opinions from any angle for the purpose you're trying to achieve, and who has created an environment where everyone feels comfortable contributing and in fact is demanded to contribute.
Thank you, Andrew.